Hi, I'm Marla Kane with PHEAA, the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency. Today we're going to spend some time learning about financial aid process. Items will include the FAFSA, our Pennsylvania state grant form, some loans, and then finally some tips, hints, and suggestions when looking at a financial aid package. It's important to understand what is financial aid. You know, many times families and students, they think financial aid or their financial aid package is simply free money. And while that could be true, it's going to incorporate many, many other items. It's going to include items such as self-help, which could include work, maybe your savings, but it's also going to incorporate some loan products. There are 4 funding sources in which monies come from. The first would be from the federal government, which we'll talk about momentarily. Second would be the state agency, which for us in Pennsylvania is PHEAA. Third would be the institutions, and this could be in the form of institutional funding coming from your colleges, your trade schools, your post-secondary institutions. Finally, it can come from some outside sources. Those places may be your guidance office. Your guidance offices are a wealth of knowledge for our students and for our families. You'll note that they're going to have opportunities for not just your high school, but also for the counties in which you live. Families would also want to check any clubs or activities or organizations outside that you belong to. You want to check your employers. Additionally, your students' employers may have some funding sources for you as well. Finally, there are some great websites that you can visit online. You'll just need to be cautious in making sure that you never pay for a scholarship. A great one that we like to recommend is fastweb.com. There are 2 types of financial aid. You're going to note the first being need-based aid, and need means what it says. It's going to take a look at your family's financial needs. So it's going to take a look at some items such as your income, your assets, and some other factors, which would include the number of people in your family, the age of the older parent. You know, the lower your family's income, well, the higher the potential for need-based financial aid. The second type of aid, well, that tends to be everyone's favorite because it doesn't necessarily take into consideration how much your family makes. It's called merit-based aid. And merit-based aid essentially means there's something about your student that that college and university likes. You know, it could be something based upon their academic or their athletic ability. It could be the special talent or an achievement even, maybe even a program of study. Now that we've covered that, let's talk about the federal and state programs a little more in detail. But before we can do that, we really have to concentrate on the whole process of the financial aid. You know, financial aid is 2 major components. It's going to focus on paperwork, or what we like to say now, computer work, because we can do most of it online, but also our deadlines. So let's cover some of that now. You're going to note that there's going to be quite a variety of financial aid forms that you may need. The first and most important being the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Now, almost every school across the nation is going to require this form. And keep in mind, not only will your student who is a senior be filling out this FAFSA starting October 1st, but they're going to have to fill it out every single year thereafter. There are going to be a variety of forms that are required for the financial aid process. The first and most important of those forms will be the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's important to note that that FAFSA needs to be completed every single year the student is attending post-secondary education. There's going to be some other forms that are required as well. For us, for example, the Pennsylvania State Grant is a requirement. The difference between the FAFSA and the Pennsylvania State Grant, however, is that our form only needs to be filled out 1 and then you're done, unlike the FAFSA that needs to be completed every single year. There may be some other forms that your schools are going to require, so it's important to be in contact with each of those institutions because they may vary. Each school is independent from one another. For example, some of our private institutions may require what is called the CSS profile form. Don't fill it out unless they tell you to do so, because there is a fee associated with it. There may be institutional forms, internal forms. But all in all, after everything is done, it's important to respond to these forms in a timely fashion. And if you're not sure, just pick up the phone and call the financial aid office. They're there to help you. Let's talk about the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And while I have mentioned that the FAFSA is the primary form, remember, you do need to complete this every year the student is attending post-secondary education. You know, the FAFSA is used for a variety of reasons. It's not only just used for need-based aid, that we talked about a little while ago, but it's also used for other things. Your student needs to have a FAFSA on file if they want to take a loan from the federal government. If a parent wants to take a Parent Plus loan, if a student wants to get work study, they have to have a FAFSA on file. And finally, any scholarships, whether it be internal at the college or university or even external, you need to have this FAFSA on file. The good thing is you don't have to finish it all in one sitting. You can skip, you can come back later, you can make corrections. Again, just remember, it needs to be filled out every single year. Deadlines are really important, and that's the second feature that I had talked about in terms of our paperwork. And while the FAFSA opens October 1st, there are going to be some deadlines you need to pay attention to as a student and also as a family. You'll note that every college and university across the nation has their own financial aid deadline. And simply put, there is not enough funding for all students that apply. So what they do is they create their own deadlines. Problem being, each school is going to be different. What does that mean for you? Well, it means you have to check with the school's financial aid offices. You need to see what are their deadlines. You then need to be sure that the FAFSA is completed by the earliest of all the schools that your student is applying to. Now, we at PHEAA, we have our own deadlines as well for our state grant form, but many times our colleges and universities are way ahead of us. We'll talk about the two that you see listed there. The first is our May 1st deadline, and this is for our first-time and renewal students who are attending colleges, universities, and college transferable programs, but that's going to exclude our community colleges. Our second deadline is August 1st. This is for our first-time students attending community college, a business, trade, or technical school, a hospital, school of nursing, open admissions institutions, or a 2-year non-transferable degree program at a junior or a 4-year college. Now, the number one question we all seem to get is whose information goes in on this FAFSA? So let's take a moment and explain that for you. If parents are married, then it's parents' information, which is reported on the FAFSA. If parents are not married but are living together, it's also parents' information that's reportable on the FAFSA. But in cases where parents are divorced, parents are separated, parents were never married, the way the FAFSA is filled out is like this. Where the student has resided the most for the past 12 consecutive months is the parent and only parent's information that is reportable on the FAFSA. So non-custodial parent, we're not putting any of that information on the FAFSA. It truly is where that student has resided the most. It's not going to matter either who claims the child on the tax return. It's not mattering over 50-50 custody disputes either. It truly is where that student has resided the most. You'll also note that step parents, their information is reportable in on that FAFSA. Adoptive parents, yes, their information is reportable as well. But in cases of foster parents, so if you are a foster child or you're a foster parent, that foster information is not going to be reportable on the FAFSA, nor are legal students that are in a legal guardianship through the court system. Instead, they'll be deemed to be independent students, meaning their information of the parent will not appear. They'll skip over that. Anyone else the student is living with? The answer is no as well. You're going to see you need a lot of information when you're filling out this FAFSA form, so it's great to be sure to gather your data before you fill out the form. Some of the items that you will need include social security numbers of students and parents. You'll note that the driver's license is listed, but it is optional, so don't worry about it if you don't have it for the student. You're then going to see that the FAFSA uses prior tax year information. So for our purposes of this video today, we are completing the 2019-2020 FAFSA. With that being said, we are using 2017 tax data. We don't have a choice. That is what is required for us to put in on the form. Important to have with you your 1040, your 1040A, your 1040EZ, your taxes. Additionally, you want to be sure that you have your W-2 form with you as well. And people will often say, well, you have our tax information. What do you need those for? Well, there are some questions that don't appear on your taxes that we need to find on that W-2 form. So just have everything with you. A paper version is going to be much better than electronic if you're trying to switch from screen to screen as well. Just a helpful tip. Things do change, however, when we talk about the next items below. You're going to see, while we were talking about 2017 tax information, we're going to switch gears and we're going to be looking at current data. So what I mean by that is we're looking at the information below as of the day you're filing the FAFSA. So let's take a further look. You'll need to have a rough idea of your current bank statements, including your checkings and your savings account and cash on hand. Additionally, you'll need to have your current business and farm records. We'll stop there though. If your business employs less than 100 people, the asset of your business is not reportable on the FAFSA. Also, if you own a farm and you live on the farm, the asset of the farm is not reportable on the FAFSA either. You'll need to have records of any stocks, bonds, and other investments, including your 529 accounts. We'll take a moment to pause there as well. Those stocks, bonds, and other investments, as long as they're not tied to your retirement, we need to see them, or they need to be put in on the FAFSA. Your 529 plan, we're looking at the total value of that 529 plan. So for all children in the household, that also is going to be an asset of the parent. We are the owners, they are the beneficiaries. So it is our asset. We will put that in on the FAFSA. You're going to note that we need additional untaxed income tax records. Some of those items might include veterans non-educational benefits, child support paid and received, and that's going to be for all children in the household, not just for the one going off to post-secondary education. Workers' compensation and disability payments. Disability payments, however, are not going to include the items such as Social Security disability. So we're looking more towards private disability companies. So Social Security, whether they be retirement, survivor benefits, death benefits, will not be reportable then on the FAFSA. So two important things to keep in mind with the FAFSA. You are completing for this year the 1920 FAFSA. And remember that it is available right now on FAFSA, FAFSA.gov. Also note that the FAFSA will be collecting your prior tax year information, which means they're using the 2017 tax data. Also note that you will be using what is called the IRS data retrieval tool to transfer that prior tax year information directly into the FAFSA. You're going to use your FSA ID to transfer this information as well. We'll cover that momentarily. This IRS data retrieval tool makes it so much easier for you to move your information from your taxes into the FAFSA. So essentially, by using the tool, it's going to take you out to this site, which is the IRS website. Important to note, tip for you, is that make sure you have your taxes in front of you, whether it's your 1040, your 1040A, your 1040EZ. You want to put in everything as it matches exactly on your taxes into the IRS website because it is an exact database match. You're going to see as it's transferred the information over from the IRS, you can see below on this screen that it will let you know that you have recently successfully transmitted your information. It is, however, going to encrypt it and it will not be displayed for your viewing. You will note that there is an indicator that the information has transferred successfully, however. We did mention that you will need an FSA ID in order to use this IRS data retrieval tool, but also you're going to use it for a lot more things. One parent and the student needs to have an FSA ID. An FSA ID, very simply, is a username and password. You'll see this year that the student is able to log into the FAFSA using their FSA ID. A couple of key things to note with the FSA ID. Parents, don't create an FSA ID for your student. It's something that they should do. You both need separate email addresses, separate phone numbers. You're going to have to answer 5 security questions. 3 of them are pre-populated for them, meaning it's a drop-down box. Pick a question, put it in answer. The last 2, however, you need to create your own question along with your own answer. So pick something solid, something concrete, something that's not going to change. A suggestion that we have, the street that the student grew up on, the name of their first dog, something that will be solid and concrete. They may be using this FSA ID for many, many years to come. They're going to use it in a variety of sources, not only to open up that FAFSA, but to move their data in from the IRS. They're going to use it to sign the FAFSA. They're then going to use it if they take a loan from the federal government for entrance counseling, exit counseling, to sign a master promissory note, and then even further down the road, if they're going and looking at the different loan options we have through a federal website. With that being said, we do want to show you the login area of the FAFSA so that you can see this truly is the student's FAFSA. That student you'll see on the left-hand side is where they can go in and they can enter their FSA ID, that username and password. You as a parent, however, if you are completing the FAFSA with your student, you'll see that you can log in on the right-hand side. I want you to note, however, you're not putting in your FSA ID as the parent. Instead, you're putting in the student's information. Remember, this is the student's FAFSA. We as parents, we're just lucky to get to put our financial information in there for them. We also wanted to show you the signature options, and that's again where you're going to use that FSA ID. So parents, you can say, it'll show you the parent signature form, and that's where you're able to sign the FAFSA. Now, before being done, you will see that we have what is called the FAFSA completion page. You're almost done, but not quite. So we do want you to take a moment to pause because there's a lot of great detail and information that often is missed on this confirmation page. You're going to see items such as the expected family contribution. We'll cover that. But you're also going to see some great data on those schools that your student has decided that they may want to attend. You're going to see things like graduation rate, retention rate, transfer rate. So take a moment and look at those items. Before you move from that FAFSA completion page, you do want to complete our Pennsylvania state grant form. You're going to see that there is on the left-hand side a box that clearly states, start your state application to apply for Pennsylvania state-based financial aid. It really is only going to take you a few minutes by doing it this way, because by doing it all in one sitting, basically the information that you've inputted into the FAFSA is going to transfer over into our state grant form. It just makes it that much easier for you to do. Upon completion, you're going to see that you will need to check the rights and responsibilities box to electronically sign our state grant form. Once you check that box, you will see on the right-hand side, the Submit My Information button will appear. It'll light up, you click on it, and it will move you through, and then you're done. Technically, nothing has to be printed, either on the FAFSA side nor on the Pennsylvania state grant side, unless you choose to do so. Now, if for some reason you were to miss our Pennsylvania state grant form, you missed the link, maybe it timed out, maybe you got an error of some reason, don't worry. You still have an opportunity to fill out our Pennsylvania state grant form. You will have to wait a couple of days. We recommend 48 hours or so. Then you'll need to visit us out on PHEAA.org. You then will need to have your student create an account with us through Account Access. You'll see through Account Access, they'll be able to do a variety of things. Students will be able to not only fill out their state grant form, they'll be able to see awards, they'll be able to see it being processed, they'll even be able to update their address or even change schools. Our FAFSA completion tips include, be sure to use prior tax year information and use the IRS data retrieval tool. It is required and preferred. You want to answer all the income questions. You want to carefully review the untaxed income questions as well. Remember that the FAFSA is a living, breathing document. It's doing math for us. It's doing a lot of things, such as skipping some items if they don't pertain to us. But note that there's a help and hints built right in. You'll note that they are little question marks and circles. If you click on that question mark circled area, it will then open up another window. It's going to tell you exactly what you need to put into that box within the FAFSA, especially for the section that includes those untaxed income questions. So just take your time, read along. It really is not as difficult as it seems. Additionally, remember that 529 plans must be reported as parent assets, and it will be for all children that have that 529 plan. Assets do not include your home, so your primary residence, but if you do have a secondary house, it will include that. Also note that your overall retirement is not an asset. Qualified insurance policies are not assets, nor are your personal property. You will not report a business if it employs less than 100 people. Do not report a farm if you live on that farm. Some people can actually skip those asset questions. So if you don't see those asset questions appear, that means you're able to skip them. And then finally, there is online help available within the form. There's 3 ways you can reach out to the federal government. There is a 1-800 number in which you can call. There's a live chat feature, and there's also an email. So for any questions that you have, don't pay anyone. Be sure, reach out to the federal government. Or as always, you can reach out to one of your higher education access partners here at PHEAA. Let's talk about the free money programs that are available for students. The first of those programs will be our federal programs. Now these programs are going to be for those students that demonstrate financial need as determined by the FAFSA. You will note that the Pell Grant, which is for the 2018-2019 maximum amount for the year, would be $6,095. That's going to be for the entire year, not per semester. So that's important to note as we go through all of these numbers that we're looking at. There's also going to be an opportunity for campus-based aid. These amounts are determined by the financial aid office. Essentially, the federal government allocates a certain amount of money to each institution. It is then at the discretion of that institution how they give those funds out to students, again, based upon their policies and procedures. So the first program is the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunities Grant. You can see listed there. It goes up to $4,000. Additionally, Federal Work Study is another campus-based program, and the Financial Aid Office would determine whether your student would be eligible. Important to note that Federal Work Study is not something you should subtract as free money off of that financial aid package, because you're still going to have to pay that amount. Essentially, it's an offer of employment. So if you were to see a dollar amount, that means your student could work up to that amount. But I can tell you, many of our students will work that job and they'll spend the money instead on things like shoes and pizza, not necessarily save it for tuition or next year's books. We strongly recommend, if your student does take this work study job, you can save that money and apply it to next year's expenses. Work study is a fabulous program. Not only are your students working on a college campus many times in the degree program in which they're going for, but they have a professor as a counselor. It's been proven that students that participate in work study are better at time management and have higher GPAs. Remember, for most of these programs, your students must be enrolled at least half-time. Half-time is 6 credits. 6 credits are 2 years. Pell Grant also is available for a total of 6 years. For our state programs, we have the Pennsylvania State Grant Program. And just like the Pell Grant, it is based upon financial need. It is a little different in terms that it also is going to depend upon the cost of the institution. The higher the cost of the school, the potential for the higher state grant award amount that you'll see listed on this screen. So for residents of Pennsylvania going to a Pennsylvania school, you can see the full-time award amount for the 18-19 year goes up to $4,123. Additionally, there is a part-time component, which is half of the full-time award. There is the in-state Pennsylvania Full-Time Distance Education Award, which goes up to $2,061. You will also see that there are a few states in which the Pennsylvania State Grant is able to go out. Those states include DC, Delaware, Massachusetts, Ohio, Vermont, and West Virginia. And of that funding, students are only able to take $526. Again, students need to be enrolled at least half-time. Half-time is 6 credits. 6 credits are 2 classes. Our Pennsylvania State Grant is good for students that are attending a 2 to 4 year institution. Additionally, the Pennsylvania State Grant is only able to be used for a total of 4 years. That would also include the Summer State Grant Program if they were to use any of those awards. We do have some other state programs that are available. Our State Work Study Program, our Blind, our Deaf Beneficiary Grant, the Educational Assistant Grant through the National Guard, the Chafee Education and Training Grant, which is co-administered with the PA Department of Human Services, our Post-Secondary Educational Gratuity Program, our Partnerships for Access to Higher Education, the Pennsylvania Targeted Industry Program, also known here in Pennsylvania as the PA TIP Program, our Ready to Succeed Scholarship. And if you'd like more information or details, you can visit our Pennsylvania Student Aid Guide or simply visit us out at PHEAA.org. Let's cover some loan options that will be available. We'll start off with the federal direct loan for students, Parent Plus loan, and then finish off with those private alternative loan options. The loans that are available for students include the Federal Direct Loan Program. They're available to all students regardless of need. Additional unsubsidized funds are available for independent and Parent Plus denials. It's important to know that there are interest rates that apply and also origination fees. The interest rate for the 18-19 year is at 5.05%, where the origination fee is 1.62%. So essentially means that origination fee is going to come off the top of what that student is borrowing. It is awarded to every eligible undergraduate student. It is in the student's name, so they don't need a cosigner, they don't need any collateral. They will have to take entrance counseling, they will have to sign a master promissory note. Available loan amounts will increase in subsequent years. There's no payment required while attending school nor during the 6-month grace period. But based on the FAFSA, students have a combination of receiving one, the other, or both. The first being a subsidized loan where the government pays the interest in school and during the grace period, and the unsubsidized portion where the interest accrues in school and also during that 6-month grace period. Students would visit studentloans.gov and also their school's websites for additional information. There are limits as to what our students are able to borrow. You'll see them on this chart listed here. Our students as freshmen are able to borrow a maximum award combined amount of $5,500. You'll see it increases by $1,000 during the sophomore year to $6,500, and then during their junior and senior year to $7,500. Parents are able to borrow as well, and they're able to borrow through the Federal Direct Plus loan. It is for parents of dependent undergraduate or graduate level students. And that Direct Parent Plus loan is in the parent's name for the student's cost. Just like the federal direct loan, there's going to be an interest rate that goes along with this, as well as an origination fee. For the 18-19 year, you're going to note that it is a 7.6% interest rate, with that origination fee being at 4.624. Rates are going to be set every July 1st for the life of that year's loan. And again, the fees are deducted from the disbursement. And a family can borrow up to the cost of attendance, but remember, you must apply each year the loan is being taken. There is no debt to income test, only a lenient credit check. You can also have an endorser, which is then a cosigner for the parent if that is needed. The principal payment can be deferred while the student is in school, but interest is going to accrue. So remember, if interest is accruing, that means that it's capitalizing, meaning that you're going to have to pay more back than what you had initially borrowed. So keep track of those interest rates. If a parent is denied, the student is eligible for an additional $4,000, but it's going to be in that unsubsidized loan where interest is accruing while the student is in school and also during that 6-month grace period. Finally, remember that a FAFSA must be on file in order for a parent to apply to a Parent Plus loan. Another option for borrowing would be a private or an alternative loan. These are made from non-federal loans, so basically they're going to be made by a lender such as a bank, a credit union, a state agency, or even a school. Now the student's going to borrow in his or her own name, but they're going to need a credit-worthy cosigner, so that might just be us, parents, or even you. It's going to be based on credit scoring and the debt-to-income ratio. The payment may be deferred until the education is completed, but remember, items such as fees, interest rates, loan amounts, and repayment provisions are going to vary by lender and are generally higher than federal student loans. Again, cosigners usually are required, and some loan products actually have a cosigner release option. So it's important to compare lenders. Read the fine print before you decide, is this going to be the right loan for you? And there's not a right or wrong answer. Maybe you decide to take a full Parent Plus loan, or maybe you take a combination of items. Maybe your student takes a direct loan, you take a partial Parent Plus loan, maybe the student also takes a private alternative loan. There are no right or wrong answers, just knowing that there are options out there for you in covering those costs for post-secondary education. So what happens next? there is a number on the FAFSA completion that is called the EFC, also known as the expected family contribution, and it's used for a variety of reasons. It's used to help determine that need-based aid, which we covered earlier, but it's also used by your institutions to put together your school's financial aid package. And your financial aid package can come in a variety of ways. You might see it in print, which would come via postal service, or it may even be in an email, or it could even be in a portal where a student needs to log in to that particular institution to see their award amount. That EFC considers a family's taxed and untaxed income, their assets, their size, how many will be attending college, and the age of the oldest parent. It includes allowances for taxes. It focuses mainly on income, and you will note that the parent plus the student contribution will equal that EFC. Important to remember that is not an asset is your home, your personal property, qualified retirement funds, and the value of life insurance will be excluded from your assets. Again, an asset protection allowance is applied against the parent's reported assets. And that EFC calculation roughly uses 6% of parent asset contribution and 20% of the student contribution. And students are able to work. Student income contribution is used in the calculation, but only after it reaches $6,660. After such, only 50% would be used towards this equation. And if you have more than 2 children in college at the same time, this number would then be split in half. Why would that be a good thing? Well, the lower the number, the more potential for free money and need-based aid for your student to attend post-secondary education. Your financial aid offices are going to use this for calculating financial need. Your schools and colleges receive the information and they calculate this need. So essentially they take the total school cost, they minus that EFC number, and that is the financial need of the student to attend that institution. What they then will do is put together that financial aid award letter. The financial aid award letter is the official notification from the college and the university. It's going to talk about the terms and the conditions. It's going to list the type and the amount of each award to be received. It will describe what must be done to accept or reject any award. It will also disclose the student's rights, responsibilities, and those academic requirements. It really is important to review the financial aid package. You know, after reviewing these packages, students should be sure they know and understand the following. How much of the financial aid is free money? So what is need-based and what is merit-based? What is the conditions of the free money? In particular, are there any GPA requirements that the student must meet and achieve every semester? Will awards change from year to year? Tuition does increase. So if that tuition does increase, will the additional funds come from the school, or is that something that you as a family need to find the funding for? Will loans be needed? If so, how much, and are they already worked into the financial aid package? We at PHEAA have a wealth of online resources available to you. We encourage you to visit our online resources. Some of them include PHEAA.org, myfedloan.org, aessuccess.org, educationplanner.org, mysmartborrowing.org, and also youcandealwithit.com. Many of these websites have wonderful calculators, additional tips, hints, suggestions for you, career assessments, ideas on paying, just lots of valuable information, so please visit us. Additionally, you can find us on many social media platforms. You'll find us on Facebook, listed under PHEAA, also American Education Services and Fed Loan Servicing. You can find us on Twitter at PHEAA8, at Fed Loan Servicing, at aessuccess.org, and then finally on Instagram at PHEAA. We hope that you have found this video to be useful, and we wish you great luck and success in paying for post-secondary education.